If it wasn't completely obvious already, Pokémon White really means a lot to me. I mean, so much so that I'm working on a video at the moment all about it. About things I can't really put into words properly as much as I'd like to. What I can tell you, though, is that it is one of my favourite games ever made. There are really only 2 others that even remotely come close. All this to say, Pokémon was a pretty big part of my childhood. I mean, funnily enough, I actually watched the anime before playing any of the games, but hell, I still remember loving that style of animation, and it led me down the rabbit hole to wherever I am today. I've played pretty much every release since Pokémon White, minus a few exceptions here and there, but I've stuck with the franchise ever since, and while I didn't enjoy most of the games post-Alpha Sapphire as much as I did before, I still kept coming back. Or at least I kept paying attention. I remember there was a time when a mainline Pokémon game being released on a home console was a prospect pretty much everybody was excited for. It's safe to say that Pokémon's Switch era is probably the weakest in franchise history. There was a distinct lack of polish, quality, care, design, post-game content, replayability that was just present in a lot of the 3DS entries up until that point. Especially compared to Sun and Moon just a few years before. It's not as if I hated them, however, far from it. I still fully completed my Pokédex in Pokémon Violet, and I still found shiny hunting to be quite fun. But even I can see that game is not, well, very good. The gameplay is fun enough, and a mainline open-world Pokémon game is just something I'd always thought about. That's sort of where my list ends. The rest is pretty much negative, and I can kind of group it into 4 different factors. Main things are the lighting, the region design, and the gameplay. As for the 4th, I'll talk about that shortly. The main issue with Pokémon Scarlet's lighting is just how washed out it all looks. All the lighting's harsh, unflattering, it just makes everything rough to look at most of the time. Not to say that the game is beautiful, it's, well, a little bit rough on around the edges, but most of the time the sunlight and the actual lighting of the game really doesn't help it. The region itself also somehow regressed further from Sword and Shield, until the entire world's pretty much just a circle. Which, if it wasn't obvious, isn't really very fun to explore, as there isn't really anything that can actually surprise you. And the gameplay itself was not modified enough to fit such a large world. All the elements of gameplay present in Scarlet and Violet would have made for a brilliant 3DS game, but for a game of this scale, so much of it just feels empty, like you weren't meant to be seeing it, it feels unfinished. Now, everything so far seems pretty negative, and yeah, you'd be right. There's lots of stuff I was disappointed by. But all of this sort of leads me to my 4th main point. I think the big factor behind a lot of these shortcomings is time. Pokémon have been keeping to a similar release schedule ever since the DS era. As those consoles were easier, faster, and just not nearly as complex as fully 3D games, that really worked. But this bottleneck of time really seems to be causing a lot of problems in this new 3D era. Making a game of that scale in that amount of time just isn't possible. Not to a good standard, anyway. My only real request for the Pokémon Company, my only real plea, was that they just listen to their developers. The criticism, the reviews, the backlash. Maybe. Just maybe give them a little more time. So, along came the 30th anniversary of Pokémon. And what do you think they did about it? They actually did it! Holy shit! The Pokémon Company appear to have finally realised after almost a decade that old strategy no longer works. God, it took an entire decade for them to catch on and make something on par with what we might actually expect from them. But we're here. It's real. We have the starters. We have the lighting. We have a varied, thorough map. We have exploration and events to look forward to. Ever since I played Breath of the Wild, I desperately wanted that moment in a Pokémon game. That moment of joy and wonder and shock and awe. And while I understand that Winds and Waves probably won't have the same depth of gameplay as that does, I don't think I needed it. Hell, I didn't even need the game to get that. I got it all from the trailer alone. It looked confident. It looks as if they were showing off a game rather than confessing to have made one. And the best part of it all, 2027. Next year. It looks this good and it isn't done yet. If you told me this last year, I wouldn't have believed you. At all. It's a complete 180 over what they were doing for years before this. They're finally letting everyone breathe, and with other titles to fill the gaps in between mainline games, like remakes or Pokopia, which is apparently the holy grail of all Pokemon games apparently. God, I wish I had a Switch too. That's an insanely good strategy. They stay relevant, and their game devs get time to, well, make games. It's a win-win. Now, this change of strategy doesn't just make me excited for the next game, though I do think Wiwa, or Wowie, will be pretty damn good. I'm actually excited for the future of the company as well. Well, I guess the past, in a way. The next game in their line of remakes is pretty likely to be Pokemon Black and White, and while there's no official news yet, that makes me happy. Seeing Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl just convinced me I don't want a remake. I don't want a cheap, quickly made product that's just been rushed out to exploit fans. I didn't want a remake if it was like that. But with the new energy, the new strategy that Pokemon seems to be adopting, and their newfound confidence, I'm warming up to the idea a bit more. Now, could they release it and it still be bad? Yes. Could they also just not release it at all? Also, yes. But if there is a remake coming, and I don't care when, I just hope they care about it as much as they appear to care about Wiwa, or Wowie. I'm still not sure which yet. And until that day comes, I'll be sitting here, watching and waiting, anticipating Pokemon's next games, and whatever comes after. Thank you for watching. Also, please don't mess up Black and White, I beg of you.